Afternoon, Cherries fans, and welcome to this latest video here on Up the Cherries in all departments. Now, of course, we were beaten by West Ham 2-0 yesterday, and it was a tale of two handballs. Of course, we've had quite a few VAR decisions go against us. So what we wanted to do was bring on a professional to give us his verdict of what is going on with VAR this season. Now, before we do that, here's a little bit about our sponsors, Dental on the Banks. To find out what they can do for you, visit dentalonthebanks.co.uk. So, my special guest today has actually been on the channel before. He was Premier League referee until 2013. So, it is a pleasure to welcome onto the show to discuss those two incidents and a lot more about VAR, Mark Halsey. Welcome back, Mark. How are you doing, mate?
Good afternoon, Craig. Yeah, feeling good, my friend. Feeling good. Lots of things going on in football since the start of the season with VAR and everything. And that's why you've got me on today.
Yep, certainly is. So, of course, we got beat last night by West Ham 2-0. But there's been a number of decisions that have gone against us. We did have you on earlier, and we did, of course, mention the Burnley game in your career and everything. But I wanted to focus on some of the things that have happened so far this season. So, just looking through that incident that led to that Zuma goal. So the balls come in from the corner, and then, this is the way I look at it, is that Lenya has got his hands down and then moves them towards the goal, which changes the trajectory of the ball. What do you make of that, firstly?
Well, listen, I think when I was watching that in real time, I didn't think it was a deliberate act. I thought, obviously, the law has changed this season. If you scored directly from an accidental handball, the goal would be disallowed. But if a player accidentally handled the ball and then it goes to a teammate who then puts the ball in the back of the net, the goal should stand. Now, when I watched this last night, and obviously I've done my piece in the Sun this morning, I thought it was a good goal. And remember, we shouldn't be watching the AFCB protocol. We shouldn't be looking at incidents in slow motion, because you can get whatever you want out of a slow motion replay, because you can look at it 6, 7, 8, 9 times. Eventually, you can find what you want to find. If you want to find a penalty, you'll find it. If you want to, disallow a penalty, you'll find it. So, listen, I know Bournemouth fans are upset. I know they've had decisions go against them this season, in which they've been unfortunate. But when I saw it in real time, I thought, that it's an accidental handball, and his hands are in a natural position. When the ball comes across, it hits him in there, and then I looked at some footage this morning, what was sent to me, on social media, and it looks like he is moving his arm or turning his body towards the ball. Now, at that moment in time, it's in slow motion. We don't, we need to see that in real time, because we don't know if he's like just moving them to keep his balance, or he's moving his body with moving his arms away, and at that same time looks like he's moving, and the ball hits his arms and changes the direction of the ball. So it's very difficult in not watching an instant in real time or watching a still photograph. So listen, it's subjective. Bournemouth fans will say it should have been disallowed, and West Ham fans and other people will say it's a good goal. Watching the game on Sky last night, they both said that it's a good goal. Sean Dyche and Jamie Carragher said it's a good goal, and they've both been ex-players. They know about these things and what goes through players' minds. And I mean, it was looked at quite some time. And listen, Bournemouth fans will be upset. But as I say, we need to look at things in real time, and I really do feel that we've got so much inconsistency at the moment regarding decisions, handball, offsides, foul, non-foul, leading up to goals. And I look at the second penalty, the handball, and you look at that and you think, yeah, okay. His hands in an unnatural is what they would perceive as an unnatural position. Now, is it really? Because when you're stretching to try and block a ball, where are you supposed to put your arms? You use those arms for the balance. Yeah. Now, if you look at that, you look at the close proximity, so the distance from the player and the two players and the ball. You could say, well, he's very close and he's whipped it across. Yes, his arm is out, but is it in a natural and unnatural position? Now, if we go back and look at Arsenal-Liverpool a few weeks ago, the Gabriel handball, where it wasn't coming across, it's exactly almost the same instant, really. The ball's coming across, not at pace, like we saw last night, but the ball's coming across, not at pace, and Gabriel moves his arm to stop that ball. Now, I was pretty sure that would get reviewed, and I was amazed. It didn't. So, what's the difference between the second penalty last night and the Gabriel penalty? What? Tell me what's the difference? And that's what frustrates fans, is the inconsistency we are getting with VAR on many incidents. We could talk all day long about incidents this season with handballs where some have been given, some haven't been given. Look at the Emerson Royale one in the Newcastle United game. Now, why was that reviewed?
Well, exactly, and I'm sure there will be a lot of Newcastle fans today turning around and saying, "Well, why was that not given to us?" Okay,
well, Newcastle fans rightly so, because look at the Dan Burn one a few weeks earlier. I think it was. Who was it? Was it against Brentford? It may have been. I can't remember who the team was. Now, Dan Burn's jumping with his. I mean, you've got to jump. Everyone that's played football, I've played football to a good level, and you use your arms for leverage to get you that height. And so when you're up there, it's very difficult for you to control. Your arms up there, you're keeping your balance. So the ball's been headed back, and his arm's up there, and it's hit the back of his arm. Now, I think I think it was the one. There was the one the following day that was given. I can't remember which one it was. It might have been a Declan, right? Might have been the one at Old Trafford with when a goal was disallowed, Rashford.
Yeah.
So for me, it's too. That wasn't a deliberate act. That was an accidental. His arm's in a natural position. What else is he supposed to do? So yeah, there is. I think fans can be from every club could have a case with VAR this season. There's no doubt about that. There's no doubt about that. And it's the inconsistency. I think what we need to. I think another thing that would help, because what we've got to remember is the fans are just as important as anybody else in the game of football. Without fans, and we saw it in COVID, didn't we? Without the fans, it was nothing. The game was just nothing. And so I think that what we need to start hearing is the communication between the referee and the VAR. So everybody knows what's going on. Everybody knows what they're looking at. You know, they're talking about the incident. The VAR's telling the referee's telling the VAR. If we could hear that, that'd make it so much easier for the fans in the stadium. They may not agree with it, but they will understand how they got to that decision and possibly respect the process of the decision making.
Yeah, completely agree. And one thing with regards to that first goal, and like you say, the Zuma finish was good. It was a good finish. But my question, and my cousin Billy, he is a West Ham fan, and he said he would have been livid if that went against them. Now, if that ball had gone into the back of the net and we hadn't cleared it at that point, so imagine that man wasn't on the line and it went straight into the back of the net. Surely that couldn't have counted because it has touched his hand. That was the last part of his body
Yeah.
that it touched before it went in.
The law has changed regarding Law 12 handling the ball. Now, had that gone straight into the goal, that goal would have been disallowed, because if a player accidentally handles the ball and then scores a goal directly from that action, the goal will be disallowed automatically. If a player accidentally handles the ball and then it falls to a teammate who then puts the ball in the back of the net, that goal will stand.
So
that's a law change.
The big question now, really, for the Premier League is, would it have been better, us not defending that ball going into the back of the net, and then that being the risk, running the risk of that being disallowed, or doing the right thing, clearing the ball?
Well, you don't think like that, do you, when you're playing? And I don't think any Bournemouth player appealed at the time, did they?
No.
And so, in watching it in real time, you would say it was accidental. When you slow it right down, you can find whatever you want to find in that instant. And you could, I suppose, when you slow it right down, like you could say, well, yeah, okay, perhaps Bournemouth were hard done by in that situation. But when I saw it and I'd done my piece last night, it looked a perfectly good goal to me. It didn't look like a deliberate act. But you question what angles. I mean, the angle I saw, like you said, it looked like his movement was just a little. But then, when you're doing that, your hands are by your side. You do an automatic movement of your hands. Like I'm sitting there now with you, and that's it. I'm going to go to get up, so my hands will go forward, or So listen, I know it's hard for Bournemouth fans to take. A little club like Bournemouth, they've done terrifically, doing terrifically well where they are. Trying to keep their place in the Premier League. And they're having, I feel, a good season because the size of the club, they're doing terrifically well. And I know Fletcher's texted me this morning and or tweeted me privately about it. So I think we've agreed to disagree. I think I can see on where they're coming from. I can see where they're coming from, to be honest.
Like you say, Mark, when you slow it down, and that's not, it's a problem with VAR personally for me, because back in the day when you was refereeing, not every decision would be right, but
back in the day, Craig, it's only 2013.
Well,
only 2013 I retired, pal.
But the thing is back then, 9 times out of 10 you would get it right, but there would be that decision and people could understand that. But now, because you bought the machines in, these referees are, and I don't blame the referee, to be perfectly honest. What I do blame is at Stockley Park, them watching that over and over and over again and then deeming that to be a goal. Likewise, whereas, the penalty a little bit later on when Zamora, he's lunged for that ball, Soufal's ran down that right wing for West Ham, and I don't know which one it was. Did he intend to get that ball across, or did he think, I might as well throw this ball across because it might hit Zamora on the hand? I know what the referee will give and what VAR will give. And to be fair, you can't blame Soufal for that. It's
No, I
solely
mean,
VAR,
obviously,
personally.
it's only the players can answer that, and the law is quite clear. It has to be a deliberate act. It has to be a deliberate handball. You know, your arms. You've got. You know, if you're making yourself bigger, then you run the risk. You run the risk of a penalty being given in that situation.
Yeah, no, most definitely. It's not the only time though it's happened so far to us this season, and I know we might sound like a bit of a broken record now. And Gary O'Neill yesterday said we've had 10 VAR decisions that gone against us. There was, of course, the incident at Fulham, where there was the tug back on Ryan Fredericks. Now, what did you make of that? Because it didn't look like it was a big tug, but still, Fredericks went to the floor. If he wasn't, it was theatrical. I've got to be honest when he fell. But do you feel that that should really have been a penalty?
Yeah, well, again, we're looking at inconsistencies, aren't we, on decision making with these incidents. Now, if you look at that incident, I look at that, and the following day we had the disallowed goal for Manchester City against Liverpool for Haaland, and a little bit of a tug. Now, and watching that game, it was end to end. It was a fantastic game to watch, and then brilliantly refereed by Anthony Taylor, I must say. But if you looked at that, and as long as a referee is consistent within 90 minutes with his decision making, you cannot argue. But, and it's not Anthony Taylor's fault, you had that one decision, he then becomes inconsistent because he's let everything else go, and because that's led up to the goal, they've looked at it and penalised. Now, in isolation, you can say it's a foul. There's a little bit of contact, but the problem we're getting now is that they're coming out with start and said, there's a higher threshold. Well, there's nothing in the laws of the game, Law 12, fouls of misconduct, about a higher threshold or how long you got to hold on to a player before it's a foul. So if we look at the one at Fulham the previous day, for me, if you're giving that, you've got to give the penalty.
Yeah.
Because that was far worse at Fulham to what was given at Anfield again for Man City. So when you look at that, I mean, again, there's nothing in the laws of the game to say, you can, he didn't hold on to his shirt long enough for it to be a foul. It's nonsense. Now he's got hold of him, he's pulled him back. It just makes a mockery of, and for me, it comes down to leadership and direction from the PGR management. We didn't have these issues in the Euros.
Yeah,
we don't have these issues in the Champions League because the leadership and direction from Roberto Rossetti. Now we've got Howard Webb coming back to the fold, and I think we will see some big changes. It won't happen overnight. It's going to take time, but we will certainly see clear leadership and direction to these referees. And sometimes I feel that they're trying to re-referee in the game. Minimum interference, maximum benefit. The clear and obvious area. The absolute howler. That is what VAR is there for. It's not VAR. It's the personnel that are operating it.
Yeah, no, completely agree. And one thing you mentioned there as well, of course, at the World Cup, the Euros, we haven't seen these problems. Yet we've got the richest league in the world, and a good friend of the channel, an AFC Bournemouth fan, Al Gard, is based out in France and watches a lot of French football. And 9 times out of 10, there is the odd contentious decision. There's always going to be that with VAR or not VAR. But they get it right. The referee will go over to the screen, watch it, and make up his own mind. And to be perfectly honest, if we did that rather than having somebody at Stockley Park who's not even in the ground saying that's a penalty, well, that's not a penalty, fans could understand that a bit more.
Yeah, I think the World Cup just sums it up for me. Is that we haven't got any We haven't got any. We haven't got any. We haven't got any English officials going to Qatar.
Yeah.
And VAR officials. We haven't got any.
Yeah. It says its own story.
That says it all. But hopefully, with Howard coming back and working within the PGMOL in charge of the referees, we may see a big difference. You look at the Man City and Brighton game this weekend. The 2 penalty incidents. How on earth can VAR not recommend a review for is it Sanchez, the Brighton goalkeeper? Is it Sanchez? Yeah. He clearly fouls Haaland. He really takes him by the ankle, and for me, that's a clear penalty. Not given. How has Lee Mason not recommended a review? Okay, difficult for the referee from his position right behind it. Is there contact? Is there not contact? And then you get the second incident, Bernardo Silva. I mean, for me, he initiates the contact, and is it a clear and obvious error? No, it's not. Why has Lee Mason got involved? Why has it taken him? Was it over 2 minutes to get to look at that incident? If you're looking at it that long, it's not a penalty. If you're looking at for an offside that long, it's not offside. We've got if we're looking at things for 2 to 3 minutes, 7 or 8, 9 times, even 5 or 6 times, it's a goal or it's a penalty. It's not a goal. It's not a penalty. It's not a sending off. As I said to earlier, minimum interference, maximum benefit. That's what VAR is all about.
Yeah, definitely. And there was the incident against Nottingham Forest earlier on in the season as well. Lloyd Kelly actually turned his back to try and get his hand out of the way of the ball, and it struck him, and it must have been very, very lightly on the left hand, and the penalty was given. And it's when these players are trying, like yesterday, Zamora has dived in to try and stop that ball coming across. His hands are there for balance, and of course, it's unfortunately struck him on the hands. He's not intentionally done that. He's intended to stop that ball coming across.
Yeah, listen. If you look at the Champions League games, all the players in the Champions League, what do they do? What do the defenders do when they go and try and stop a cross? They put their arms behind the back.
Yeah.
Listen, I remember the incident, and I think it's subjective. Some will say yes, some will say no. Obviously, the match referee, I know it was Michael Oliver on that day, gave the penalty, and I remember seeing that. I thought, well, his arms out. He's made himself bigger. That's his decision. VAR won't overrule this, and then VAR recommended a review. And Michael's gone to the monitor, looked at it, and stuck with these original decisions. Now, I applaud, rightly or wrongly. I mean, Bournemouth fans may disagree with that, but I applaud Michael for sticking with these original decisions. That's what we want. We see referees making decisions in real time where they're subjective and they're being called across by VAR, and they're going with what the VAR is telling them, and that's what they're told to do. Go with what the VAR tells them. But on this occasion, Michael Oliver went against the grain and stuck with the penalty. No doubt he got a telling off from his bosses over that.
But I completely agree with you, Mark, that the referee shouldn't be able to make that final decision an overall VAR, because at the end of the day, the referee is the person that will get the grief for that. It's not Stockley Park. It's only recently been, coming out about Stockley Park, and of course, it being watched there as well. And of course, a lot of the anger is aimed from the Bournemouth fans at Stockley Park now.
Yeah.
But the referee is the man in the middle and should be entitled to make that final decision. If he thinks it's a penalty, then fair enough. If he doesn't think it's a penalty, but he's got that as just a backup.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing at the moment, I think we're seeing referees relying on VAR too much, not making that on-field decision, where I would like to see the referee make that honest on-field decision straight away. And what they're doing, what we're seeing is they're not, and I think they're they're relying more and more on if they've got it wrong, VAR will come in and help them. So, yeah, listen, as I say, it's something that I think a lot of fans, players, and managers would like to see taken out of the game, but it's here to stay. It's here to stay, and I think we've got to become more consistent in the way VAR, Stockley Park can view incidents. And we've got to be more consistent. Well, at the moment, we're still very, very much being inconsistent with many different situations, and we need to get that consistency back to what's reviewed and what's not reviewed, what we recommend for review and what we don't recommend for review.
There's a lot of fans as well that are saying that the refereeing is better in the Championship now than the Premier League because of VAR. Is that unfair?
Well, listen, I mean, I think they don't want the Championship, don't want VAR. I mean, I've heard now in Scotland that they don't want VAR after after a couple of weekends, after this weekend. Listen, I think goal line technology has been fantastic. It's been good for the game, and I think eventually VAR will be good. But I think people are still learning. I honestly think that you need a body of active officials solely refereeing actively, and a body of retired officials solely at Stockley Park or wherever the truck may be.
Yeah,
because it's a totally different profession to being active and to watching a TV screen for 90 minutes and all the incidents that are going on.
After watching it a couple of times since, would you have allowed that first goal with VAR?
Well,
would you have given the penalty?
Well, listen, that's hard. I mean, in real time, you've got to say yes. I mean, I've got to say yes. You would give that goal because you don't. Listen, when you see it slowed down, you can see what he does. And as I said earlier, I'm going to move to get up, so my arms go forward. So he's going to move forward. His arms are going to go forward, and it looks like he's deliberately pushing that ball. And listen, I feel for the Bournemouth fans on that incident. It was a difficult one. It was a difficult one, wasn't it? I mean, was it a clear and obvious error for VAR to get involved? Like you say, had it gone directly in the goal, it would have been ruled out. Yeah. Let's hope that some decisions go Bournemouth's way, in the season. Let's hope.
Yeah. There's a lot of fans as well, and of course, I want to dispel this rumor because I don't believe it to be true. But there's a lot of fans saying that the Premier League don't want us here. I think that's rubbish.
I think it's absolute rubbish. I think they deserve to be there because they got promoted. They deserve to be there. And for the Premier, for people to come out and say the Premier League don't want to see, I think listen, that's not true. And as I say, I've got a good friend down there, old Fletch. So and they're doing a great job down there. I really do hope they stay in the Premier League because we want to see teams like Bournemouth do well all the time, come up against these big teams and beat them, and they can be formidable at Bournemouth because it's the same for both teams in that little stadium. The pitch is the ground's so close in, and so. But no, it's a great place to go. Refereed there many times and loved going down to the south coast.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Mark. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you again. Hopefully, we won't have to talk after the Spurs game about another incident. But no, it's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you so much for coming on again, mate.
You're welcome. Take care. All the best,
Cheers.
Craig.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
And thank you, everybody, for joining me on this show. Please remember to hit the like, the subscribe, and the bell button below to be alerted to any new videos we do here on Up the Cherries in all departments. Please do remember to check out all of our previous interviews. There is the interview with Mark that we did back before the start of the season, so do check that one out. We've also had, of course, Mr. Fletcher was mentioned in the video, so do check out Mr. Fletcher's interview. I'm sure you already have. You've also got Steve Cook. You've got lots and lots of special guests within our interview pages. So do please check them out. But until the next one, up the cherries, and I'll see you then. Thank you for joining us.